Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me here today on this little video. Just wanted to just out taking a walk in the beautiful Shropshire countryside, and just thought I'd sit down and shoot a quick video for you. And the topic of this video is really how to handle situations in life where somebody does you wrong or does something to offend you or upset you in some way, and it's really how to handle that and deal with that. And really, for me, it's quite simple. There's a phrase that a close friend of mine once said to me, and that was, their life is their punishment. And do you know what? As a young man in my 20s, I could be quite aggressive. Not sort of fighting every Friday night and that sort of thing, but when somebody did something wrong, it really got my heckles up and really made me quite vengeful and wanted to take revenge and do something about that situation. And as time has gone on, I've learned that probably the opposite is really the way to deal with it. I mean, it certainly works for me. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but certainly I think it's a better way to approach things than ending up with a criminal record or giving somebody a good hiding because they've done something that you don't agree with. So I want to give you a couple of examples of how I've used that recently, if I may. Some of you may or may not know, I recently lost my father. It was back in March when he passed away, and there was two events that happened around that particular very emotionally volatile situation for me. Obviously there's the grief of losing somebody that's close to you and somebody that you love. And the first event that happened was about 2 days before my dad passed. I was with him, tending to him whilst he was on his sick bed, and he was wearing a body warmer at the time, and that body warmer had some money in it. And the reason I know it had the money in there, or notice it so much, or what sticks out in my mind, is because it has a money clip on it. And my dad's never really used a money clip, although I did buy him one about 20 years ago, and it seemed to be that this was the money clip that was holding his cash. And anyway, that was on the Saturday morning when he was getting changed, and then on the Sunday night when he passed away, the money was gone. And I have a pretty good idea who's taken it. I've got a pretty good idea who was involved, and it would only be one of, literally, I could count on one hand how many people would be involved with it, but I pretty much know who the person is. And that situation for me brought out a lot of emotion, a lot of anger, a lot of how does somebody bring themselves to stoop so low to steal money off a dying man, literally on his deathbed? And you know what, guys, sometimes you just got to let that go. And for me, knowing this person and knowing who they are, and I shan't reveal who they are in any way, shape or form, but if I apply their life is their punishment scenario to it, yeah, I can see how that would play out for them. And it's not about comparison or about comparing my life to theirs, but I know where I'd rather be, if I'm honest. And so the second thing that happened recently was, as I say, at the passing of my father, we arranged for a cremation, which was what my father's wishes were, and we were there on the day of the funeral. It was a beautiful send-off, had a really lovely day. There was a lot of people there, some old friends and people I didn't know, and it was a really nice send-off. And I'll be honest, I was completely emotional, tears streaming down my face. Very upsetting time, because it was my chance to say goodbye and make peace with my dad and everything else, all that sort of emotions that you go through when you lose somebody that's close to you and that you love. And yeah, just right at the very end of the funeral, I was waiting outside at the back with my brothers. People were coming over and saying goodbye and blah blah blah, and saying their last few comments about dad and everything else. And this lady comes up to me and taps me on the arm, and I put my ear down to her as I'm sobbing into my handkerchief, and she says to me, "You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. Sorry, you should be absolutely disgusted in yourself." And I thought, that's interesting, isn't it? Why somebody would choose somebody who I've never met, by the way, somebody I don't know, couldn't tell you who it was if I walked past them in the street tomorrow, have no clue about who they were or what they were even doing there, or what their agenda is, that they would come along and they'd say something like that to me. And I have to have some level of sympathy, that I would look at somebody's behaviour around that sort of scenario and go, would I do that to even my worst enemy in that scenario? Absolutely not. I mean, it takes something to, I think, be the kind of person who would feel as though they could say something like that in that sort of a scenario to somebody else who they don't even know. For me, it was a bit like watching something playing out on a Coronation Street soap or something of that nature. And I was just gobsmacked by it. But then I reflected on it. I thought, what a hurtful thing to say. And then I thought, you know what? Well, maybe their life is their punishment. For behaving in that manner that I found was quite a low way to behave. Let's be honest. And I'm not, look, guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to preach here. I'm not trying to say, oh, look at me. I'm able to handle this sort of a situation. I just think, well, do you know what? Yeah, did it make me angry afterwards? Of course it did. Did it affect me? Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I spent 4 or 5 days reflecting on that and wondering what on earth it all meant, or why somebody would say something at that moment. And obviously there's a lot of emotion involved, as you can probably understand. But that, it happened. And maybe, this is my take on it. Maybe this is how the other side work. Maybe this is how the dark side goes about their business. And, they pick these moments, and they pick unjust moments, and they do these certain things in an attempt to elicit energy from us. And that happened, and it could have got a very different reaction to the one that it had. It could have resulted in a huge fight, and I chose not to go there. I have no interest in that sort of behaviour. It's not really me, and yeah, good luck to her if that's the way she wants to play life and she wants to go about doing those sort of things. All well and good, but for me, I'm going to choose the moral high ground and move on and leave that person to God's capable hands. And this is the way I look at things, guys. Karma is a very, very, very powerful thing, and I'm sure if you look back on your life and people that have maybe crossed your paths and have done things that were otherwise a bit naughty towards you, or they've behaved inappropriately towards you in some way, karma's dealt them an interesting hand afterwards, and it does exist. Time and time again I've seen it where people have literally behaved in a disgusting manner, and do you know what, they got their just desserts. And it might take a month, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 10 years, but I guarantee it will catch up with them. And that is a very powerful thing, and it keeps you in the clear. So hope that's useful. Me and this one are going to go and carry on doing a little bit of walking now, so have a wonderful, wonderful day.